All right, thanks. I started my entrepreneurial career. We founded a company called CRF Health, and it's a really serious business. So providing technology for patients that are part of clinical trials, testing the medications and making the process for the pharma companies much faster and all that. And company is doing reasonably well right now. We founded it in 2000, and this year the turnover is a bit over 30 million euros, and kind of a operating profit is roughly like 15% or around that. And then we still own half of the company. So some people said that we made a bold move, and some people said that we made a really brave move. So each of us founders, we took like a £2 million in loan, and we bought one of the investors out there. So we thought that it's a great deal, but we'll see it later. Wife is happy, of course. But that's what we do today. So I personally thought that maybe I should kind of try becoming an investor. I've never been an investor in my life, so I've been using with the kind of a B2B, B2C software in a different environments, even with the kind of a hardcore biotech companies. But I've never been an investor. So together with my colleague or longtime friend Petteri Koponen, who is known from Chaiku and a few other companies, we founded Lifeline Ventures. And the idea is that we go for the revolutionary ideas in health and web, and especially if there's an area where these two crossroad. And I think that where we have been very successful compared to what has been happening in this country before is attracting the best brains from abroad into the companies. So everybody would be dying to get, to Accel Partners or Index Ventures or True Ventures, several other Silicon Valley kind of top brand names as an investors to the companies. And right now we have been investing from 50 to 200,000 euros, our own money and the money that we have raised into 17 companies. And out of these 17 companies, 16 have gone out to raise money, and 13 of them have been able to get it from what we call like the tier one kind of investors. And the investors never make the companies, but it's important that you have the best guys in the world to develop your company. And when we are evaluating the companies, the first thing that we are looking for is that we always say that you need to have CXO capable founders. And what we mean by that is that if you think these kind of tiny startups as a publicly listed entities, you need to have somebody in the management who can grow, is scalable to be a CTO, CEO, VP sales of a publicly listed company. And Tinkercad is a great example. So it's a kind of a distributed cloud CAD software that all the big boys like Autodesk and all the others are dying for. So they have basically solved the problems right now in like 10 months that these bigger companies haven't been able to solve in 15 years. So it's amazing, and it's pretty much based on one guy. So Kai and his team, extremely talented. Kai used to be running Google Docs. So if you know the kind of cloud service that Google is providing, so Kai was the technology lead for that service. So you can kind of just imagine what type of technical capabilities the guys have. The second one that we're always looking for is a category. So there's too many businesses that they say that they do something. So it's what we look for the entrepreneurs who are coming and we want to kind of start working with is what are you doing? Applifier is actually the biggest web service ever run from Finland. So it's the biggest cross-promotion network for social games, meaning that if you're a games developer in Facebook, it's very difficult to get your game adopted, and right now this guy is changing views with this guy, and Applifier is having a commission in between. So 150 million users, and it's a lot. So it's basically like 1/3 or even half of the active gamers in Facebook. So it's a really big network, and it's a good example of how you define a category very easily. Biggest cross-promotion network of social games. Then the third one is potential. And like I said, we work also outside of software. Oncos Therapeutics is probably the most promising, scientifically most promising biotech company that has been from this country ever. And our biotech has not been really the most successful industry in the past. they make oncolytic viruses. So viruses that go to cancer cells, they multiply very aggressively, cancer cells explode, and there's a very strong anti-tumor immune system kind of attack against the tumor. And here you can see, so one of their industry fellows was just bought by 1 billion in January this year. It's a big promise. So you need to have a big promise. If you want to do something big, there needs to be a big potential as well. So CXO-capable founders, clearly defined market with a very big potential. And then there's something that I've been working a lot lately, which people are kind of laughing that it couldn't work, but actually if you think central brain areas, for example the brain area called rhabdonucleus, which is actually in the between of your ears. So if you put your fingers into ears, there's this brain area that is controlling and producing all of the serotonin in your brain. And those of who you know antidepressive medications know that they all are based on serotonin. And in that small brain piece, it basically sees light better than your eye. So I just leave you that thought to think how big it can be. So any blockbuster antidepressive medication sells like 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 billion in annual sales, and the biggest are over 10 billion. So why are we doing this? So we actually believe with Petteri that technology entrepreneurship is having its renaissance in Finland. So if you read the kind of the newspapers, everybody says that like it doesn't work and everybody has lost their money and there has been big promise but it has never flourished. But we actually believe that right now it's the first time. So we have the serial entrepreneurs who have been working in multiple companies. When we started our first companies, we were all newcomers. When I started CRF, I didn't have any experience on pharma companies. So we basically picked the phone and called, looked at Pfizer is the biggest company in the world, so they might be a good customer. Then we picked the phone and called their global kind of, switchboard and asked that can we talk to somebody who's responsible on clinical R&D. And then they, figure out that, okay, so we have this one guy who is controlling the biggest R&D budget in the world after the US military research, so maybe we connect you to this guy or something. So that's a kind of a real life story actually. so in that sense, the times are different. So right now we have actually experienced entrepreneurs. We have started to have a really lucrative kind of a track record of few exits and a few growth companies, like MySQL is a kind of a classic example, IO Box before that. Right now we have Angry Birds, who is kind of gathering a lot of games companies around it. So right now it's the time. And that's why we are kind of doing this investment, that we believe that this is the best use of our time currently. And that was my kind of a small intro. I'm not going to bore you any more than that, so we can then have more time for the discussion.